So everyone, please give a warm welcome. Mr. Shan.
This will be a very informal talk, but I thought I would talk a little bit about decisions in law school and careers, particularly working in DC. So the first point is, yes, I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. My math and science weren't that great, so I couldn't be a doctor. So in order to have a professional career, I chose law, but I always loved to argue, so that was something that I always enjoyed doing ever since I was a kid. I did not go straight through college and go straight to law school. I took quite some time off. I did a master's in fine arts, and I did some amateur boxing and kickboxing and worked in a community center. And a lot of folks often ask whether or not you should go straight through or not, and my feeling is that it's okay to go straight through, although sometimes there's a fatigue factor with that. But if you have something in particular that you want to do, then I think it's perfectly fine to take the time off. Especially nowadays with the legal market not as strong as it once was, it might not be a bad idea to do something else first. In my instance, I knew I wanted to work on my writing for a while, and I wasn't so sure that later on, when I began law school, I'd have the opportunity to do that. So that's why I took the time to do the Master's in Fine Arts. The original program I was in at Georgetown was a joint degree program in law and international affairs. And I encourage you to take a look at programs like that. There are a lot of joint programs or MBA programs or foreign service programs like that. The program at Georgetown was very well integrated. You did your first year was all law school, and then the second year was all international affairs, and then the third and fourth was combined. So I actually had a great time my first year in law school. People often are less happy than I was in law school, but I found it to be a very intense experience. But I always tell people that it's really important to throw yourself into that experience rather than having what I consider to be the sour grapes rationale, which is this is so horrible and so stressful that I need to constantly tell everybody how this is really dumb, I shouldn't be that into it, and not put a lot of effort into it. But instead, I always tell people, even though it is a stressful experience, you really need to just throw yourself into it, because the more you put into it, the more you'll get back from it. So for me, the first year, besides the coursework, I also did something called moot court there, which is a mock. They have mock trials now. They also have mock appellate arguments. And the area that I worked in as a student advocate was mock appellate arguments. And that was really tremendous training for me. Those sorts of programs, as well as clinical programs, can give you a tremendous education. I mean, I really feel that the legal writing and the legal thinking that I learned really came from doing the court program there, where you were given a very small amount of time to digest a complicated case and produce a written brief, and then you had to argue it many times. And that was very much like the real world in terms of assignments that you get, where you have a short amount of time, limited resources, that you have to produce something quickly. And the kinds of lessons I learned about how to organize my thoughts and how to organize my writing really carried over throughout my whole career. And really my best teachers for that were my teammates. There's students who are 3 Ls and 2 Ls were coaching us, as well as just the repetition of having to produce the brief and edit it many times to get that work product the right way. And that was really tremendous training. Because actually in law school, at the larger schools, you're not going to get anything that's particularly practical. You'll come out with a lot of theory. You won't actually know how to try cases unless you've taken some sort of a clinic. And at least in first year, the traditional way that it's done is a very stressful experience, because in my case we had, I guess, 4 year-long courses, and there were no quizzes, there were no midterms, there were no papers. It was just in the spring you had one final exam, which was 100% of your grade. So you could go the entire year, never go to class, go to class every day, and you could have a great exam, get an A, or you could have a terrible exam, get a terrible grade.